Welcome to the George Thomas Clark podcast. I recently viewed for the first time the very popular John Wayne movie. I say popular, maybe I should say instead highly regarded by film historians. What is noteworthy about it is not only that John Wayne was still in his prime. It was filmed in 1956 when he was about 49 years old. John Ford, the director with whom he collaborated many times, was in his prime as well. The photography is beautiful out in the Midwest. But what is most significant is that John Wayne didn't play a particularly heroic figure. He played a guy who was in some ways perhaps disturbed, definitely disturbed. And before trying to analyze it too much, why don't we read what John Wayne himself wrote about it? He's not here to read it for us. I wish, with all his charisma and his great voice, I wish he were here for that. But he's not. So I'll read it instead. Searching for John Wayne. Hell, I should have written this more than 60 years ago when it was okay to say I like good whiskey and Latin women and they're part Indian, so don't call me a racist killer, as film historians have, because in The Searchers, I do what any rugged pioneer should. I know what you're going to say. I'm bigoted as hell from the start since I fought for the Confederacy before heading out west. Plenty of people died for the South and their way of life. Yeah, a lot of that was based on slavery, but that was how they did things, and you weren't there, so don't be too sure what you would have done. You don't know, Pilgrim. Out in Texas, the Comanches attack and kill my brother and sister-in-law and nephew and kidnap 2 nieces. Damn right, I go after them and get even madder when I find the oldest niece dead and no doubt raped in a canyon. Debbie, the younger niece, isn't even a woman, yet when she is, if not before, I know what they'll do to her. While searching, we find another family that was kidnapped, and they're still alive, but their minds are gone, and I tell my men, they ain't white anymore. We know who's murdered my family. It's the Comanche chief, Scar, and his warriors. A few years later, we find Scar, and I tell him, you speak pretty good American for a Comanche. Someone teach ya? And he says, you speak pretty good Comanche. Someone teach you? We enter his teepee, where his 4 wives huddle, and he tells us white men killed his 2 sons, and he took many scalps from each one, and orders one wife, who rises and turns to become my niece Debbie, displaying a lance with some of the scalps. She's now a beautiful woman dressed as an Indian. I can't do anything now, so make a camp nearby. In a little while, Debbie comes running down a sandy hill, pretending to understand not only Comanche, before switching to English and telling her stepbrother, these are my people. She can't go home with us. I draw my pistol and say, stand aside. I'd rather see her dead. Her stepbrother jumps between us, but before I can figure out how to handle this, an Indian shoots me with an arrow from behind, and the stepbrother and I escape on horseback, killing many Comanches with 6 guns that never run out of bullets. Debbie was my only living kin, but she's gone, and I try to bequeath my property to her stepbrother, but he says keep it because I'm a rotten man who tried to kill her. He doesn't understand I was right because she'd been living with a buck. Later on, when we get word that Scar and his killers are nearby, we make plans with the regional captain. Debbie's stepbrother warns not to charge in or they'll kill her. That's what I'm counting on, I tell him. Living with Comanches ain't being alive. One of those scalps on that lance was your mother's. He insists on going in alone and quiet and finds Debbie sleeping in a teepee. She screams before understanding he's her stepbrother. Scar must have heard and approaches the teepee from the rear, where the stepbrother kills him with a straight shot. The cavalry and I charge in, and I find Scar's corpse, grab his hair, and take out my knife. Back on my horse, carrying the bloody scalp, I see Debbie, who thinks I'm still trying to kill her, and she runs till she falls, and I ride in, dismount, and lift her over my head, and then carry her like a baby as I warmly say, "Let's go home, Debbie." Some think The Searchers is based on the kidnapping of Cynthia Ann Parker, whose life mirrored Debbie's, except Cynthia didn't want to return. I guess people who believe that would have liked to see Debbie resist, grab my knife, and kill me. I guarantee that wouldn't have been a happy ending for most of the nation, but I reckon some of it would have brought war cries.